Everyone. It is November the 30th, 2015, about 8:30 a.m., and this is DelRayVAWeather.com. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the research I've been doing over the last couple weeks regarding El Nino. And I actually I started several times to make this video and then changed my mind, because some of the results I've got are a little puzzling to me, and certainly be interested in any of the viewers' thoughts about what they might mean. Okay, what you see up on the screen is a graphic I've shown before in other videos. It shows the different regions of the equatorial Pacific and their El Nino designations. Basically, what we have is there's essentially four El Nino regions. We have Nino 1+2, Nino 3, Nino 3.4, and Nino 4. And the original traditional El Nino, when it was first discovered, only really looked at the sea surface temperatures in Nino 1+2. And we have the graphic here that shows the locations of those different areas and what they are and the designations for them. Looks like I forgot one graphic. This one over in this area, it's called the Modoki El Nino, center-based El Nino, and I believe this really fits more with the Nino 3.4, and that's important to remember. That Modoki looks a little bit like that most of the energy is in the Central Pacific, Nino 3.4. Okay, this is a graph of showing the web page at the Climate Prediction Center, showing what they use as the El Nino index. What most people use is the El Nino index. People who are playing around with El Nino values will recognize this graph. This is what a lot of people use. It shows the deviation from the normal temperatures for a given month. And it's a 3-month moving average. So it's like this column would have December, January, February cumulative amounts and the deviations they are, and etc. across for the different calendar years down this way. Now, the one thing that I think maybe a few people don't realize is that this used El Nino index is actually dealing with the Nino 3.4 region. It isn't doing the traditional region of Nino 1+2, and that 1+2 is what originally started the whole idea that we have something called the El Nino and it has an effect on the weather. So everybody needs to bear in mind that these indices that indicate whether we're in El Nino or La Nina are really only based on the Nino 3.4. Okay, why do they base that on Nino 3.4? Well, I think that it was the result of a conference that occurred in the D.C. area a few years ago, in which a paper was given, which the presenter made a statistical case that Nino 3.4, that region, is the optimal for monitoring El Nino, and it generally follows what the climatological effects would be. So that's, I think, the reason why they limited it only to 3.4. And I couldn't find anything why they didn't choose Nino 1+2, which was the original El Nino region. The 3+4 region index is not the only index. There's another one called the Trans Nino index, which factors in more than just one region on the equatorial Pacific. Okay, let's get to some of my research. Okay, what you see here, I actually downloaded a lot of years data for the sea surface temperature in centigrade for all 4 regions. I go back to 1981. And then rather than use the deviation from the normal expected, I use the actual temperature of the sea surface by month, the monthly average from the 1981. And I ran what is in mathematics is a filter. It's a moving average, and I picked a 13-month moving average. What that will do is that will suppress any cycles in the data that are less than 13 months. So if we have an annual cycle, it's going to kill that, and the resulting data of the 13-month average will be only the long-term cycles, anything greater than 13 months. Okay, what you see here is the result of that analysis, and you see that all 4 regions of the equatorial Pacific are pretty flat. There are peaks. This peak obviously is in the 1997 El Nino peak, and you got some peaks back here in the 1986, and you got a little bit here in 2009. So I mean, these peaks that you see here are some of the strong El Nino peaks. This is 1982, which is also a very strong El Nino. Okay, if you look at the El Nino 97, which is the one where we got the DC area got very little snow, you'll notice that these 3 regions, we're talking about Nino 1+2, 3, and the 3+4, 3.4, are all very close in the sea surface temperature. Normally, the coldest is the Nino 1+2, warmer is the 3, even warmer is the 3+0.4, and the warmest is the 4. And so during the 97, 98 El Nino, we had these 3 very, very close to being equal, and we had the Nino 1+2 much above its normal value. Okay. Now, if you do a least square curve fit through each one of these regions, you will find that all of the slopes of all of these lines, with one exception, are negative. The one exception is the Nino 4, which is slightly positive. But all the others are slightly negative, which shows that the long-term trend of sea surface temperature, if you pull out anything less than 12 months, is very slightly down. The temperature is decreasing at a very slight rate, but it seems to be decreasing. And that because we use a linear curve fit here, that could actually be a part of a very long downward cycle, that you have a down part of a very long cycle and an up part of a very long cycle. So that's one of the puzzles. Okay, then I took that data and subjected it to a spectrum analysis. And this is the resulting values for each of the areas of El Nino. If you notice, there's a very high peak here at a very long cycle. It's like 42 years, and that peak is in all of these regions. But if you also notice, these peaks get progressively large, and they come up like this on all of the graphs. That's a logarithmic characteristic, and what it appears to me like is that most of the energy is either in a long-term cycle or is a DC component, in other words, a value that just remains constant of the sea surface temperatures in all of the regions. And I graphed these all on the same scale, so there is 45 is the same on all these, so that it didn't distort any of the perspective. part of the, and this is really what kept me from doing the video for a while, because this really is puzzling to me why we don't have some peaks at shorter wavelengths down here. It's possible that this characteristic is a result of the fact that we don't have enough data, that you can't resolve cycles longer than 42 years. And so there may be a peak here, and then longer cycles drop off when you get the higher things. But we don't know, because there's no data back beyond about 1979, because they didn't measure sea surface temperature in the equatorial Pacific accurately like they do now by satellite. Okay, we also observed that there are smaller peaks at the 6-year and 3.5-year periods. They could be harmonics of a longer cycle that we're not seeing. So, I'm unwilling to say that we have cycles that are 6 years and 3.5 years, because the way these things go up and down, up and down, up. Now, that definitely looks like a harmonic effect of some other cycle. So, as far as the long wave cycles, I really don't think you can draw too much conclusion other than the sea surface temperatures in all 4 regions are basically flat. Okay, then I took and looked at the shortwave periods. That's sea surface temperature cycles less than 13 months, and that's what you see here. And we graphed them all side by side. The scale is a little different, but they basically show where the peaks and the valleys are. Okay, Nino 1-2, that's the traditional El Nino area over near the Pacific equatorial coast of South America. And if you measure these peaks, they generally all peak in the March time frame. They all seem to peak at the March time frame. And if you notice, this is a very regular cycle, and it comes out to be very close to a 12-month cycle. Okay, if we look at Nino 3 at the peaks, also a fairly regular cycle, not too much variations. And these peaks peak in April, so we're 1 month later than the Nino 1+2, and they are regular 12-month periodicity. Okay, Nino 3.4. 3.4, if you remember, is the area of the ocean that is used by Climate Prediction Center to create their El Nino index. This is irregular. The peaks are anywhere from April, May, or June. They can peak any month in that region. The characteristics here would suggest that there might be another cycle different than the 12-month cycle. So we really don't know too much about what's going on, other than we have irregular peaks, peaks anywhere April, May, or June, and there's really no regular periodicity between peaks. Finally, El Nino 4, that's the area in the western Pacific near Australia, and this is much more irregular. The peaks can be anywhere between April and November. There's a wide variation in periodicity here. Again, this could be many different cycles interfering with one another over in the western Pacific. Okay, when I subjected this to spectrum analysis for the short waves, this is what we got. And if you notice, the 1+2 has a very high peak right around 12 months. No question about that. Okay, but there is this 6-month peak here. Again, it could be a harmonic of the 12, but just keep an eye on that as I explain. Okay, in Nino 3, that region, peak at 12 months, but much lower peak than the 1 plus 2. The Nino 3.4 again has a much lower peak than any of the other two, but if you notice, the peak at 6 months is about the same on both of this and in the shortwave 1 plus 2 area. Finally, the Nino 4 region, the frequency or wavelength is much, much lower in the 12-month period, and even the 6-month period is a lot lower. So what it looks like is something happens in the region of 1 plus 2, and it looks like it may propagate westerly. So something that happens in the equatorial west coast of South America is propagated across the Pacific. And so because of the propagation, you're losing some of that energy, and as a result, you get successive lower peaks of those, the magnitudes of those frequencies. Okay, what could be causing that? Well, there was one of my followers. I tweeted out some of these graphs to some selected followers last week. And I got a very interesting response from one of my followers that connected these graphs to the Peru current. The Peru current is a cold current that comes up along the southern West Pacific coast of South America, and actually turns to go towards the equator around Ecuador, actually flows across the Galapagos Islands, and then heads out to the Central Pacific and the Western Pacific. Now, the interesting thing is that this peaks in the spring and the fall of the given period, and if we indicate that perhaps something's happening here around March or April, propagates across the Pacific, it's the likely suspect is these currents. It's quite possible that these currents are producing the El Nino effect, and these currents are generated actually stronger or less by cloud cover in the southern hemisphere and during their I think it's their winter, but as a result, this may be the likely suspect of what is causing this El Nino effect, and may explain the reason why we get these frequency signatures. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I apologize if the audio is a little strange today, but I'm having some tree work done, so you may hear some noise in the background. But if you have any questions, or if you have other comments, maybe other suggestions about the puzzle, give me a tweet at PatPend, that's PATPEND, and I'll try and answer them. Thank you very much.